guys, welcome back. I hope you're doing really well. Today I am talking about something that I am sure we have all had said to us. Why are you in a wheelchair? I'm going to be talking about sort of like how to kind of deal with it, share my experience. So if you're an able-bodied person, hopefully this video will give you some insight into what it feels like to be asked, when it is appropriate to ask and when it's not appropriate to ask. Then if you're a disabled person like me and you do use a wheelchair, hopefully this video will show you that you're not alone. Everybody gets asked. I'm going to share my story. Please feel free to share any funny experiences, bad experiences, anything like that throughout this video, and share when you think it is the right time to ask someone, why are you in a wheelchair? So basically this video is sort of inspired by many occasions that people ask me why I'm in a wheelchair. Now, as some of you may know, when I was younger I used to walk with crutches. I struggled and managed to walk with crutches, and oh man, it was hard, but I did it. Now when I was on crutches, literally all day, every day, oh, what have you done to yourself then? Oh, what have you been up to? Oh, why are you on crutches? All the time. And I think when people see you on crutches, they just assume that, oh, that you've broken your leg. You're too pretty to be disabled. You're too young to be disabled. You must have had a skiing accident or you got drunk. But since sort of transitioning into my wheelchair more permanently, I don't get asked that much. So this is inspired by something that happened recently. I went to a party at a friend's house and my friend knows why I'm in a wheelchair and all that malarkey. And she had her friends there as well, and it was very, very unlikely that I would ever see those friends of hers again. It's just completely different circles, but we were there and I got chatting to someone and we were having a really nice time, you know, like the general small chat, the doing conversations as I like to call them, and it was all fine and we were having a really good time. And then it happened. I saw the look up and down, and then they said, so yeah, I see you're in a wheelchair, why is that? Here we go. And then I don't know about you, but it's just like vroom, kind of being hit in the chest, and you're like, here it goes. And you go into that fight or flight mode. You're like, do I tell the truth? Do I lie? Or do I just say I don't want to talk about it? Because, as you know, my injury, the reason I'm in a wheelchair is because heart surgery went really badly wrong and I went through a really bad time. And it's not really the greatest conversation starter. So that's the truth. I could lie and say that I did something like a skydiving accident, shark attack. I've used that one, the shark attack. Then, because it's a friend of a friend, you don't want to lie. And then sometimes I think, well, shall I just say, another one that I use is, oh, I was born like it. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they kind of leave it. Because, I mean, it did happen when I was really, really young. And you kind of feel like you want to protect that person from what they're about to hear to save the awkwardness. But there again, they ask the question, so it's their fault, they're going to hear it. So it's really, really hard. So I've condensed my story to fluff it up a little bit and protect people so it doesn't sound so bad. So I just say, when I was 9, I had open heart surgery that went wrong and that led to a T10 incomplete spinal cord injury. Boom. I don't think that's like too bad. I mean, I could tell like the real whole story and really like make it bad. But that's how I sort of protect people. But then they were like, oh, okay. And then it was super duper awkward, and actually they kind of stopped talking to me, which was a bit sad. But then as soon as I had told the story, I was just like, so da 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 da, and completely changed the subject. So they get the idea that I don't really want to talk about it much and go into it. That's like one way. that I deal with it. See, the thing is the reason that someone is in a wheelchair is usually because something has happened, especially with spinal cord injuries. So, I mean, I've been talking to other people with spinal cord injuries, and everyone who has a spinal cord injury has a pretty gnarly story to tell. So, I mean, I've heard of stories where people have been shot by people who are high on drugs. People have had car accidents and nearly all of their family have died and they have only survived. I've heard stories where people have done failed suicide attempts. And I was talking to a lovely girl over on Instagram called Anya, and Darlo. I'll put it here so you can check her out. She's also got a channel as well. She actually had a failed suicide attempt, and she was asked the question, why are you in a wheelchair, from a small child, and it's like, you know, what do you say? It's hard. When should you ask someone why they are in a wheelchair? If someone is in a wheelchair, it is obviously a big part of their life. They're obviously a little bit different to maybe the person asking the question. But the wheelchair doesn't define us. We are a human being at the end of the day, just like the person asking the question. And we have so much more to give than just the fact that we're in a wheelchair. I have like really good stories and awesome things that I can talk about that don't involve disability and being in a wheelchair. So this is my advice. If you're able-bodied and you meet someone for the first time who is in a wheelchair, don't ask. That person is just a human, just like you, and they would like to talk to you just the way that you would talk to another able-bodied person, and get to know them and talk to them. Funnily enough, some of my really good friends don't know why I'm in a wheelchair, because they kind of don't see the disability, which I think is really cool. And I think most of them kind of do know why I'm in a wheelchair now, because obviously I do this and everything is out in the open. But a lot of them didn't know, and they were like, wow, I really didn't know that all of that happened to you. It was only from watching your TED talk that I knew that this is why. And I think that's really nice for those people to see Gem and not the girl in the wheelchair. I personally think you should, you know, get to know someone and talk to them. Maybe they will tell you why they're in a wheelchair, or it will come up in conversation and it will come across more natural. Take it from there. Or maybe a couple of times you're getting to know them and you see them, and you may feel comfortable enough to ask them. I think if deep down you don't feel comfortable and you feel like you're just asking the question for the sake of asking the question, then don't do it. You know, just because it's there doesn't mean you need to talk about it. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes people feel obliged to ask you what's wrong, but you don't have to. And I find it much more of a compliment when people don't notice it and don't talk about it. I'd love to know what you think about this. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, or I hope you found it useful at least. And I look forward to seeing you in my next one.